Sjokz, Kaiser, and Drakos. I'm Medic. I'm joined by Vedius for this final elimination series of the weekend. Schalke versus Rogue. And I don't think many of us expected to be here just a couple of weeks ago.
It's very true. What surprises me is how many of the Analysts have actually put their faith in Schalke.
Oh.
Like, I rewatched that Rogue series and I don't think they played that bad, Medic. I feel like you can criticize some of their meta reads. You can say that there was some individual poor performances, but I do think that Rogue still has a lot of good players. They finished second at the end of the regular season for a reason, and this roster is stacked with talent. So I think that they should still be the favorites. I think that they should still be bringing a good performance today, but as the analysts quite rightly say, Schalke is riding the momentum right now.
I mean, Schalke literally just come off beating Fnatic. They won last week as well. They are riding their way through the losers bracket, and we'll see if they can take it home, if they can make it to finals weekends for the first time since 2019. Let's get in the draft. Ready, we're into draft, and I know how important draft is going to be in this series. We saw yesterday some eclectic picks, the Karma coming out in the bot lane. We've seen Udyr, Hecarim, we've seen Alistar, Gragas. There are so many powerful picks at the moment. What are you expecting?
Well, I think that Schalke is going to ban the Tristana. Regardless of what side they're on, they usually take that one off the board. I am a little surprised by Rogue's volley ban. This was the center ban was also something we talked about before the game. Medic, we've seen both Rogue and G2 being big fans of the center bot lane, and it's no real surprise to see that banned away. Yeah, so already a couple question marks, because I was wondering if Alistar would be taken off the board by someone like Rogue. We know that Schalke will prioritize it if they get that opportunity. I wonder if Trymbi is willing to play things like the Gragas into it, because we know that this is a champion that Limit will want to get his hands on. The fact that Jinx, one of the big hyper carries that has been rising in popularity here in the LEC playoffs, is going to be taken off the board. Question is, how will we round things out? Things like the Twisted Fate are still up and available. Orianna, now banned away, but Hecarim's still up, Udyr's still up. I think Schalke, their best bet is to just trade, give over the Hecarim, get themselves the Udyr, plus perhaps something like the Alistar. They could also get themselves the Kaiser Alistar. We know that Neon does like his Kaiser, his most played during the regular season, and it seems like that is the direction that they're going to go by taking the Lucian off the board.
Importantly though, Tristana still available here, Vedius. We expected Schalke to ban it away. It has been left open, and Rogue immediately lock it in. Schalke now have their pick for the jungle role. Hecarim has to be high up on that priority list.
Certainly does. The question is, will Rogue answer with the Lillia? We know that Inspired is happy to play it, but when you're looking for that AD mid, usually you want to complement it with an AP jungle, and I'm not convinced that Rogue is thinking about the Nidalee, as we saw from Cloud9 last night. In any case, what direction will Schalke go? It looks like for now they're going to stick with the Udyr. Obviously, Udyr does offer a little bit more AP damage, so perhaps they want to act as a denier as well. Maybe they feel a little bit more confident in the Udyr versus Lillia matchup because they believe that that is the direction that Rogue is going to go. In any case, my next question is, will this be an Alistar lock-in or will this be a Kaiser? And it seems to me that for now, they want to get that comfort pick support for Limit. We know how powerful he is. We have some stats prepared for the game because we knew that he was going to be a talking point, and he's going to be a big talking point in this game. Limit was so impactful for Schalke in their series versus Fnatic and versus G2 that I think that he's giving him his comfort pick is always a dangerous thing to do.
Definitely is. Limit has been the standout performer for Schalke over the last couple of weeks, even getting MVP in their series against Fnatic. Rell as an answer into the Alistar. Now, usually we see this the other way around. Alistar actually good into the Rell because you can knock her out of her engage opportunities. However, Rell Tristana is a very good combo. Tristana jumps in, you get a guaranteed E-stun, and then Rell can follow up on top of that.
Very true. Does suggest that they are looking at this Tristana bot lane as well. I was quite tunneled in on the fact that this would be a Tristana mid, but completely forgot that it is a very strong flex. And of course, with the Lillia now coming out, I'm like, wait, is it a flex? So Rogue is still keeping their cards close to their chest for the time being. They have a little bit of flexibility, but yes, Medic, I'm a little concerned about that Rell lock-in because of how good the Alistar matchup is into it.
Speaking of cards, though, Vedius, Twisted Fate has made his way all the way through draft so far. Wasn't banned, hasn't been picked as of yet, and currently Abbedagge hovering the Irelia, but Twisted Fate gives you that split push pressure, gives you that threat in side lanes. Instead, the Xayah will be locked in here for Schalke.
I think that one of the concerns is you don't want it, once Tristana's on the board, TF is a big no-no, because every time he tries to roam, your tower just disappears almost instantly.
Especially with Demolished Tristana.
We saw that during the regular season. I forget who was playing, but every time that TF tried to roam, the Tristana insta-pushed, immediately punished. It basically made the TF's life miserable. So I imagine that that's not going to be the direction, but it depends on what we see as we move into the second half. Schalke looking to remove some of the safe blind pickable options that Rogue could go for in the form of Gnar. They may choose to ban away the Sion. However, we know that they have the Darius as an answer that they are more than happy to play as well. So, for now, I imagine that they will just take the Gnar off the board. They may even choose to ban the Azir. Maybe limit Larssen's mid lane pool a little bit more. Perhaps force the Tristana into the mid lane. We'll have to wait and see as mid lane bans continue to come through. If this Tristana is not in mid lane, I'm wondering what mid lane champions are really left.
Yeah, as you say, like, we've got the Azir, Twisted Fate, Syndra's been played a few times by Larssen as well across the course of Spring. So there are a few options, but with an AP jungler, you really do want a physical damage mid laner, and that's why the Tristana works so well alongside Irelia. Kaiser is the next ban. Schalke perhaps thinking along the lines that we are, that this Tristana is going to go towards mid.
And the fact that the Victor has been banned away, to me also suggests that this Tristana is in the mid lane, removing some of that safe mid lane laming that Victor can provide with the Syndra as well. This to me heavily suggests, well, one of two things. Number one, Rogue has a special mid lane pick that they need to remove all of the mid lane mages for, which could just be Azir. Alternatively, they want to run Tristana and they're saying, you know what, Abbedagge, you should play Zoe. You know, why just lock it in? Like, you know, it might ruin your comp and you might not have any power, and, you know, but at least you can pick a mid lane champion that honestly you'll still probably end up losing during the laning phase in anyway.
Ooh,
so that means that Abbedagge is going to grab himself the Azir. Obviously a very proficient Azir player himself, and also a big comfort for him. And also relatively safe. We'll talk a little bit more about why the Azir is kind of returning in Europe once we get into the game. But for now, Schalke, pretty solid front-to-back teamfight composition. They have the Alistar to act as an engage. They have the Udyr follow-up. And it looks like that Rogue are now going to go for the Karma themselves. Now, this definitely looks like a Karma top lane. Something that many fans were asking for yesterday. Also adds a little bit more AP damage to the Rogue portfolio. And yeah, basically this is a Tristana composition, which is very similar to what we saw from G2 yesterday, where Reckless on the Karma was basically enabling, and we will get an Irelia. Awesome. I love Irelia. I've been playing so much Irelia recently. To get to see it in the hands of someone that's actually good at the game is going to be even more exciting. BrokenBlade loves these carry top laners. I'm not entirely sure how great the Irelia is into the overall comp, but let's think about these comps for a little bit. So, Rogue, obviously great scaling, right? This goes back to what we saw from G2 yesterday, where you have a lot of utility from the Karma to offer all that shielding for the Trist, and when you get things like the Moonstone on top as well, so much utility, so much healing, so much support onto that Tristana that she becomes a huge hyper carry. You then also have a second damage threat in the form of the Ashe, which when there's only like, well, there are a few more divers onto the backline now, but with her strong kiting, she can also act as an engage thanks to her Ashe arrow as well. Meanwhile, for Schalke, this is something that they pretty much consistently ran. Multiple damage threat comp with top, mid, and jungle. Somewhat limited engage coming from Limit, but he's not really one that struggles when it comes to starting off and finding these fights. Alongside the Udyr, that's just going to look to run down these carries and be as obnoxious as possible. So it's going to be exciting. I think that the early game advantage should be ever so slightly in the favor of Schalke. The question is, what can they do with it? We've got some interesting drafts, interesting picks, Medic. I'm excited. I'm ready to get in the game.
So am I. It's do or die for Rogue and Schalke. Lose today, you're eliminated. Win, you go through the finals weekend. And on to Summoner's Rift we go. Rogue coming off the loss against Mad Lions. And of course, I see Schalke coming off a win against a Fnatic. Perhaps momentum in Schalke's favor. We talked about it a little bit on the desk. And Rogue going for what I would classify as a slightly harder to execute team composition. That usually we see an engaged jungler, perhaps an engaged top laner, engaged support, and you can kind of push forward, get your engages in, go front to back for most compositions these days. Whereas when you have a Karma and a Tristana and an Ashe and your only real engage is the Rell, it becomes a little bit more difficult for you to work around these fights.
Well, so one of the problems with the G2 comp from yesterday, from what I remember, was that their engage was somewhat limited.
Yeah.
So all of the eggs were in the Caps basket, and he was shielded up, and you could see how strong it was, especially with the early leads that he got. But when it came to actually finding good fights, there just wasn't enough utility on the G2 side. This is somewhat different when you look at Rogue's composition. They have the Rell that offers both the ultimate. They're jumping into the mid lane right now to get a little bit of damage onto Abbedagge. Good trade for Larssen, as the steal is also going to come through. But they also have the utility from the Ashe. And I think that that's going to be a big difference, because by having that engage from the arrow, and just also the overall utility that her kit provides with the slows, and how much harder it also makes Alistar's life when it comes to engages, I think that the added bit of utility makes Rogue's team fighting a little bit easier to execute. But of course, you're still looking at Larssen and Hans Sama to be those primary damage threats. Oh,
knock up there onto Trymbi. We see already the balance of power in the Alistar Rell combo there. Rell tries to jump in. Alistar's like, nope, just headbutt you as you try and engage. And although Trymbi gets the shield, Limit takes a little bit of a chunk in the bottom lane. As you said early on, Inspired was able to get in, steal away the Razor Beaks. Larssen jumping in once again. Halo Blades Tristana with that explosive charge can do a lot of work early game.
Definitely looks that way, as Larssen getting a pretty good trade. But I want to talk about this top lane match. You know, we talked a little bit about the comps, but getting to see BrokenBlade on a carry, we know how strong of a performer he is, right? When he played pretty much throughout playoffs, you can see his stats. Like, a very impressive KDA. He's consistently finding advantages in the 1v1 lane matchup. He always has gold leads in the early laning phase. And the impressive thing is Schalke doesn't necessarily always play through him. It's not like they always try to snowball his lane. Often, they'll actually try to play through mid. They'll have Limit and Gilius grouping up, trying to use that pressure to look for mid plays. But he's able to find these advantages by himself, and that's why we were really excited about this top lane matchup. And you can see that already BrokenBlade is looking to take advantage of the early power that Irelia can have. Now, seeing as I have this small window, there's only a little bit of trading. Notice that Inspired is stealing away camps once again. He was able to steal away that Gromp from the bot side. It seems that in this early game, Rogue is trying to make Gilius' life as difficult as possible. But Gilius should be able to get himself that top Scuttle Crab, because they do have that lane priority in top. So Irelia, Medic.
Hit me.
How much do you know about Irelia?
She's Ionian.
Yeah.
She used to have different abilities.
She did used to have different
I know quite a bit about her, but I don't know where you want to lead this conversation,
okay,
so I'm kind of just going to let you go.
So one of the cool things about Irelia that I think a lot of people don't appreciate is how powerful her passive can be, right? So all of her damage comes from when she gets the 5th stack on her passive. The hard part when it comes to Irelia is getting that 5 stacks. Because when you drop a full combo, even if you land the stun, you actually only get 4 stacks. Right? So you need to find an effective way of being able to get those stacks up. Now, if you use the ultimate, plus land the E, plus you get 3 procs of the Q off, and use the W, that's how you can generate those stacks. But in lane, the easiest way to do it is to actually use the minion wave. Now, if you'll notice, the minion wave is a bit of an awkward spot for Odoamne. So what BrokenBlade's going to look to do is start to stack up his passive. And then, when he sees the opportunity, when Odoamne is slightly overextended, they'll look to get the engage, and they'll look to try and get this Irelia snowballing. Here comes Gilius, but Odoamne, with a good ward, just out of range of this control ward, is not going to get punished as a result. But yeah, it's that passive that you really have to be wary of. Whenever playing against Irelia, just whenever she's got her passive fully stacked, just run, just leave her alone, just back away, because that's really where she's at her scariest and when she's going to be looking to try and get those trades.
And importantly, for anyone at home that doesn't know what Irelia's passive does per stack, you get extra attack speed, stacking up to 80% attack speed. If you're fully stacked, your basic attacks do on-hit magic damage.
Yep.
So it's just so powerful. In conjunction with something like Conqueror, you could be healing, doing extra damage, and getting all that extra attack speed out.
Now, one of the main reasons why I wasn't entirely convinced about this matchup was because ranged into melee matchups, Irelia can do quite well, but things that she struggles with against high mobility champions that can just keep kiting back. And when you try to jump onto a Karma, she can throw the tether down. She can also speed herself up with the E. The extra bonus movement speed from her E makes it even harder to land the stun. And notice Odoamne is running Grasp, so he may very well just be doing tank Karma up in the top lane as well. You can see that he's already gotten himself the Bramble Vest, so it seems that Odoamne is just going to make it as difficult as possible for BrokenBlade to actually get kills.
BrokenBlade's going to teleport back into the top lane here. And I do just want to highlight the fact that although we haven't directly witnessed it, Vedius, Inspired has built up quite a sizable CS lead here in the jungle. We saw already Trymbi working with him, trying to get up there, stealing away some of Gilius' camps, but at the moment, it's a 16 farm lead. That's 4 camp advantage and 300 gold extra in Inspired's pocket over Gilius's.
So yeah, we've been talking a lot about this already and how cool of a champion he is. We'll get to see more of it later into the game, but this early game has been very much about Inspired dominating the jungle matchup as we see a trade in the bot lane.
Yeah, Limit is ignited, looking for the knockback here onto Trymbi. Gilius coming down as well from the river. Hansama, the root still lands on Trymbi, even though he flashes. Gilius gonna get forced away. Hansama with that Ranger's focus, able to turn the damage back onto Schalke. In the end, it was a flash heal from Hansama, a flash ignite from Trymbi, and no summoners burnt on the side of Schalke.
Limit really playing at his limit, one could say.
Let's not.
As he is able to get away. He came very low there, but with the support of Gilius just hovering around the lane, they were able to disengage and get away without burning any of their summoner spells, as you rightly said, Medic. This could, however, give Rogue an opportunity to go for an early Drake or even a dive. Neon has no mana, Limit is nowhere near, and Rogue is looking for a kill.
And we've heard from Freak how bad it can be to have no mana. Neon's going to heal and flash away. Limit now here with the Ionian boots, so could look for an engage, but instead just backs away. This will be a plate going in the back pocket of Rogue. About 3 or 4 minions lost there for Neon as well. He's about 12 behind in terms of total CS now.
Yeah, he's going to lose a decent amount as a result of that. So, and they get the summoner spells.
Yep.
So that overall winning trade for Rogue, Limit still has his, but I like how Rogue for the time being are keeping Limit in this lane matchup, because normally on that first base, Limit wants to get a roam off. But this opportunity, he didn't have it. He was forced to come back down to cover. So now Trymbi, when he resets, let's see if he looks to roam through mids, or maybe he'll work with Inspired, who has now just hit that level 6.
And that roaming to mid was actually one of the downfalls of Rogue when it came to the Mad Lions series. We saw Kaiser constantly trying to get onto Larssen, catching him out when he overextended, and meaning that Rogue could never really have this bedrock. Larssen, very often, sort of the focal point that Rogue's compositions are built around, his late game carrying, so important for the team. And if you can get in there, if you can disrupt him, you can really disrupt Rogue's game plan a lot of the time.
Certainly can, as you rightly said. He is one of the best mid laners that we have here in Europe. I think to all split long, he has been considered second best. Yep. Every time he goes up against Caps, sometimes he struggles, as we do see an engage.
Trymbi has no flash, but there's no ultimate hit for Limit, and all Hansama needs to do is get one more auto down. Hansama with the kill, first blood, now Inspired's coming down. Neon does have the Featherstorm, flash in from Inspired, but Neon was able to dodge away from the Lilting Lullaby.
Good ult there from Neon, will get away with his life, but can't say the same for his support. As Limit flash engages, they think they have enough damage to burst him down. Doesn't have the level 6 to act as that tank, though. Also running the phase rush means that he ends up getting popped. So 2v2 advantage gained for the Rogue bot lane, and they will find themselves with an early lead. They've got an advantage in mid lane, they've got an advantage in bot lane, and they've been able to find an advantage in the jungle. Odoamne struggling a little bit, but as you can see, he takes 0 damage from Irelia on this tank Karma. We'll see what itemization he goes for. I can already hear Sjokz shrieking with excitement at the possibility of an Iceborne Gauntlet. I'm not sure how strong it is with the current iteration of the items. I haven't had a chance to speak to him or have him
I'll be honest,
about
tank Karma doesn't come up often enough that I want to dedicate the brain power to learning exactly how it works. I'm intrigued here by the fact Rogue have decided to swap up towards the top side. This is the Rift-Held side of the map.
Yep.
There's a Mountain Dragon on the bottom side for Schalke if they want to do the cross map, but with Gilius being top at the moment, Schalke really can't get anything out of the fact that there are 3 players from Rogue invested towards top.
Have a look at the minimap as well, because you'll notice that Abbedagge has just looked to reset. That means that Larssen is going to get get the push in mid. The Rell is also getting deep vision inside the enemy jungle, and basically Rogue's setup is perfect. Everything about this is flawlessly done. The timing was great. There's no contest, and this is something that we'll often see from many teams in the LEC. We will sacrifice the early Drake for the Rift Herald because it can accelerate the game, and importantly, you funnel gold into either your Larssen or your Hans Armor, either of which is a great early game lead for Rogue to find. This is what we saw from them during the regular season, Medic. Let's dive a little bit more into that, because when we think about this, one of the big criticisms we had for Rogue last week was they kind of got bought into the chaos, right? There was a lot of team fighting, whereas where they found a lot of their success during the regular season was clear control, domination during the laning phase. They moved around the map very smoothly, and you can see that during the regular season. While their gold leads were not as big as we see in playoffs, their combined kills per minute were lower. It was a lot more controlled. It felt like that the enemy was slowly being starved out. But there was way more fighting in playoffs. They were getting drawn into more of this team fight meta that we often saw, and it hurt them.
Yeah, and importantly, here you can see their teamfight kills, their teamfight deaths, and their teamfight total KD in the regular season and in playoffs. In the regular season, they got 2 kills for every death in a team fight. In playoffs, they got about half a kill per death. They were dying almost 4 times as much. Now we'll go to a fight in the bottom lane as the engage comes in. BrokenBlade diving in, and Inspired is down. BrokenBlade teaming up well there with Gilius. Now Odoamne, well, he's on the wrong side of the map. He's 1v4 on this bot side. BrokenBlade trying to clear out the wave so this next wave can push in. Limit coming down as well. Should be an easy enough dive. Odoamne does still have flash. The bear slap comes out. Limit trying to hex flash across the wall, but won't be able to get in range to catch out the Karma.
And we were just talking about how Rogue, they have calm, collected composure when it comes to this early game. And Schalke is trying to break this. They attack the bot side of the map. They attack the weak side. A common strategy that many teams have tried to use against Rogue before. Odoamne does not fall prey, but Inspired does. They catch him doing his Krugs in the bot side of the map. They're able to find a quick pick, and he didn't have flash because he used it earlier trying to set up that play on to Neon. So good response from Schalke. The problem is a lot of plates are being gained for Hans Summer. Can we quickly look at the gold and see where this shifts? Because while BrokenBlade is getting advantages, look at the difference in the AD carries, and it's going to balloon even more in the mid lane as well. As they drop this Herald down, they'll get the first tower, and Larssen is going to balloon that gold lead to about 800 in the mid lane matchup as well. So Rogue are getting the money onto their carries, so they're pretty happy with how the early game is going.
And in draft, we said the early advantage probably fell in favor of Schalke. Well, that's not how it's playing out. Rogue's so good at playing the map. It's what we saw from them in the regular season and what we expected to see from them against Mad. However, in that series, they were drawn into the chaos. In this series, they seem to have come out once again with their established game plan to just get these plates. They've taken 1 in the bottom lane, all 5 in the top lane, 4 in the mid lane before the 13-minute mark. And because of that, Rogue have a 2,500 gold lead.
Wow. Impressive stuff from Rogue in the early game. And again, I like the kills that we got from Schalke. This time we had Gilius and Limit path towards BrokenBlades, and you can see he's clearly very comfortable on the champion, the way he was trading up against Odoamne, utilizing his passive, landing some good stuns. Like, he clearly has a strong advantage, and it looks like he's going for the shield bow build. The crit build gives you a little bit more of a front line, and can definitely be effective. I'm personally a big fan of the Stridebreaker build, especially against multiple AD carries, but I guess from his perspective, low mobility Ashe, the Ashe is going to be his target, and he's likely going to be building up a lot of tenacity. The Merc Tread's obviously already completed as well, so that to me heavily suggests the BrokenBlade in these fights. It's like, okay, Hans Summer, you are my target, I will look to kill you. The question is, how can Rogue keep him alive, or if they even will? Because Larssen might be like, and ult, goodbye. Good luck getting back into the fight, Irelia. These fights are definitely going to be exciting to watch as Rogue continue their momentum. They're keeping Larssen in mid for now. They want to funnel even more resources. He just hit that level 11 mark. They're going to move Hans Summer back towards the bot side. Remember, the first Drake still hasn't fallen. Schalke didn't actually trade that Drake. Instead, they're focusing on trying to get BrokenBlade ahead.
Looking for Odoamne here underneath the tower. Odo just hits level 10. Gilius going in there with the stun, and BrokenBlade with the flawless duet will get the lockup. Gilius tanks it for as long as possible, but look at the healing on Odoamne. In the end, he'll go down. Gilius able to walk out of the back of tower range.
So, good stuff there coming out from Odoamne for as long as he can, but unfortunately, it was not enough. You could see how difficult Karmas can be to dive, but Gilius was holding tower aggro for as long as he possibly could. And that meant that BrokenBlade and Gilius could get that kill. So this does mean more money into BrokenBlade's back pocket, which is great for him. However, Rogue get themselves the first Drake of the game. Again, very late, so the 4th Drake win condition, not exactly going to be a huge threat. There's something Schalke have to worry about for the time being, but giving these early objectives over to Rogue, always a scary thing. We know how well they play in a controlled play style, and right now, things are kind of going to plan. If I'm looking at Rogue, you know, my AD carry is fed, my mid laner is chilling.
Yep.
And I've already got the Leandries completed on my jungler, so things are looking pretty good.
And the thing is, as much as Odoamne is behind, you look at it, it's like 44 CS. He's died once in the lane as well.
We talked about tank
He's a support. He's 100% a support. He's going Moonstone Manure, relatively cheap item for him to get. He'll then go Chemtech Putrefier. There's no point of him getting a Staff of Flowing Water with the amount of physical damage he has on his team. I mean, you could argue for the Lillia, it gives you that little bit more AP, but I think Chemtech is just so much better, especially when you see things like Immortal Shield Bow already coming out on BrokenBlade.
Yep. You're 100% right. I agree with you. That's why you're a support main and know more about sports, man.
Yeah, but it's Seraphine play, man. Oh, the amount of times I've been on a losing streak recently, I've been like, I have to play Seraphine again, don't I?
Well, now you can play Karma.
Excellent. Didn't work out for Reckless, probably won't work out for me. But Rogue...
Let's see if it works out for Odoamne.
Exactly.
So far in this game, he obviously has been attacked a lot. But Schalke so far finding themselves in a bit of an early deficit. One of the big things I will say is Limit not having the same impact that we often see from him in the early game. Usually he's roaming around a lot more, but because of how Rogue have played the early 2 versus 2, how Hansam and Trymbi have kind of got themselves a winning matchup, have been able to punish Neon and Limit, have done them a lot of benefits. So props to them, limiting Limit's ability to roam. And that has resulted in Rogue's early game gold advantage. They will take the bot tower. They're now going to rotate and look to take mid, as Schalke secures themselves the top tower and the next Rift Tower, which they're going to need to try and break this mid tier 1.
Of course, second Rift Tower nowhere near as powerful as the first. You don't have the option to get plate gold out of it. And Rogue have already shipped away so much at this turret that just a couple of auto attacks from Larssen will be able to take it down. Third tower of the game for Rogue. Larssen waves it bye-bye, as Abbedagge will catch the wave underneath his tower. Importantly, Abbedagge yet to complete his first item, went for the Seeker's Arm Guard just to survive the lane versus the Tristana, which does make sense, but delays your power on the Azir. Essence Reaver now complete on Neon, but he is actually basically a full item behind Hansama right now, Vedius.
Right, so that's one of the big things, because there are a few things I want to talk about there. Number one, Shield Bow being completed on BrokenBlade means that he is powerful.
Yep.
I think at this point, only Larssen can 1v1 him.
Okay.
So I think it's smart. I was just about to point out, I think it's smart for Schalke to actually play around him in a side lane. And the moment I do look at the minimap, I see Limit already hovering around him. Oh, look, there's Gilius. So Schalke is able to close the gap when it comes to these outer towers. Now, what they'll do is they'll use that pressure in the bot lane to gain some vision control around the bot side of the map. And if observers, you can quickly pan over that one ward. You can see a little bit of information, not a huge amount. They haven't invested thousands of ward, but they've got that little bit of information that they can now rotate over to mid, but offer that protection for BrokenBlade that they can then drop the Herald and then look to secure that mid tower. While Neon is behind, he's not so far behind because Schalke don't want to fight right now. As I say that, Rogue is looking for a fight themselves.
Gilius put to sleep, Trymbi looking for flank position, Abbedagge putting some damage down across the wall. Red buff was secured there by Inspired. Importantly, Neon had to pop his Featherstorm to get away from the Enchanted Crystal Arrow from Hansama in the mid lane. And also importantly, that arrow is on a much shorter cooldown than Neon's ultimate. So we'll see Hansama maybe just spamming those out as soon as he can now on the Ashe.
So, yeah, I think that the response here from Rogue is actually very good because they saw the same plan that we did, right? Play through bot, get vision bot side, rotate into mid. So what they did was they were like, okay, Larssen, you just hold bot. That's fine. Hansama, Trymbi, Inspired, everyone mid. Let's get to this wave first. Let's actually force Neon back. Let's not even give them a wave to play around. And then they use that mid wave to then rotate into the top side jungle and steal away the red. So what was Schalke's game plan to try and secure themselves the mid tier 1? They dropped the Herald, they didn't actually break that tower, and Rogue maintained control. So they're actually managing their sideways very well while preventing Schalke from actually reclaiming any control. Now, if you look, oh look, everyone is resetting, Drake spawns in 40 seconds. You can see jungle, support, and mid lane all back in base, coming back out onto the map with fully stocked control wards. Money has been spent. They're going to look to get themselves the next Drake, and Schalke is just behind on the play right now.
That's one of the issues for Schalke as well. It's actually quite difficult for them to find an engage unless Limit can find a flank position. Like, Gilius can kind of sprint at you, but Rogue gaining control of the map, gaining this deeper vision makes it so hard for Gilius to ever find the opportunity to get onto Rogue. 7 seconds on the Dragon. item advantage well in Rogue's favor.
I see a ping onto that ward in the bottom jungle. Abbedagge, I think he did just use his teleport.
Yeah,
does have the Ludens. BrokenBlade has a TP as well as the fight for mid control as a sleep comes through.
Floating Lullaby onto limit. Pops the Unbreakable Will, immediately goes in. Transcendent Blades only hits onto Hansama, but they can't really follow up any further. Inspired, pop the stopwatch. Now Schalke on the back foot. Hansama walking forward with that ranger's focus. There's the arrow. Hits onto Abbedagge because Gilius sacrifices him. Abbedagge has to flash and shuffle his way back underneath the tower.
A good initial engage from Limits, but the follow-up just was not there from Schalke. I think that at this point in time, with the Ludens completed, they felt ready to fight, but then they didn't commit to the actual engage. I'm surprised. I'm not sure if we're even going to get a replay of, because no one ended up dying in that fight, but I'm surprised that we didn't get to see a huge amount of fallout, because the moment the re-engage came through from Rogue, remember they still had the Ashe arrow up. They still have all of Trymbi's summoner spells and ults ready to go. So the second that ult engage failed from Schalke, Rogue were like, okay, we can re-engage here. We can actually commit to the fight. Let's have a look back here. So why does the follow-up not come through from Schalke? Because the initial sleep coming out from Inspired is a good one. He lands a sleep on the 2, throws the ult out, and he's saying, okay, Schalke, you got to make a decision here. So limit ult goes in. Sleep. And then BrokenBlade, he flashes in, ults, but the immediate flash away from Rogue members, and also the fact that Trymbi's in front of Hansama, I guess, just puts BrokenBlade off. His E also is used very early, so he actually feels not very confident following that up. And Schalke, it seemed like the initial engage was good, but it felt like the Rogue was just a little too far away for Schalke to actually get a good follow-up.
And because Trymbi hadn't used his Magnet Storm, hadn't used his Crashdown, hadn't used his stun, if BrokenBlade jumps in, all Trymbi has to do is press E and R.
Yep.
And how are you ever going to get away from that? So difficult for Schalke unless they can find that initial burst engage. Currently, they are relatively even on gold, only 1,000 gold behind, but they lost the second dragon. Infernal goes over to Rogue. As you said earlier, very delayed clock on the Ocean Soul option for Rogue, but in about 8 minutes, 9 minutes, it could be a win condition for them.
So that last fight is kind of like giving me a little bit more insight into some of the struggles I think Schalke is going to face with this draft. The reality is that the range is too big from the range gap, I should probably say. So the thing is, with Azir, I always think of him as a great long-range damage dealer that plays very well with the front line, right? The problem is, if you then play something like Irelia, she wants to dive onto the back line.
Yep.
So when you have champions like Alistar and Udyr, that's actually not too bad, because both those champions want to try and dive in, but all of Rogue's comp is literally about keeping your arm's length. Like, that's what it does. Lillia uses her movement speed to just keep you just out of range. Karma is all about providing utility on the backline. Tristana's range only scales with levels, and Hansama on Ashe also has a 600 base range and is all about kiting. So the moment that this Irelia wants to try and go in, the moment Udyr wants to try and go in, all Rogue have to do is take one step backwards and say, we're gonna kill you from over here, while you actually can't do anything to us. So unless they get a good flank, unless they can find a creative TP, a backline engage like this from Limit, but it's warded.
Yep.
So Rogue have nothing to fear, unless actually Hansama, it's not a good pathing.
Hansama still has flash.
Actually, he doesn't
but
care.
the arrow out, Unbreakable will immediately pop by Limit, but just look at
him
the chase here. Limit just can't go anywhere, doesn't have the flash, tries to engage, but immediately is dead. Hansama just held him at arm's length. Hansama, the big brother, puts his hand on Limit's head and says, excuse me, no further, as Limit's trying to wildly flay towards him.
Oh my words. Hansama, absolutely no fear. I thought that he was going to be in danger. I thought his positioning was poor, but that just shows the difference between me and Hansama as he looks to run down the jungler now.
I mean, what can Gilius do? Like, Turbo Chem Time does nothing for you when you're running away. You have to be running towards your enemies. Abbedagge pushes in the top wave, gets tier 2, but Rogue are taking tier 2s aplenty. 3,000 gold lead now for them. 2 minutes on the Ocean Drake, so they're going to reset, back away, spend some of this gold. Look at these gold differences, Vedius. 3,000 between the two AD carries.
Wow. Yeah, and this is just a very classic Rogue game. This is what we've come to expect from them during the regular season. Odoamne on the weak side, Larssen and Hansama having money consistently funneled into them, making sure that they're covered. Larssen catches sideways while Hansama has the primary support and play around. And yeah, Rogue just playing a very clean and clinical early game. And like now we can see the true power of their composition. It is a disengaged kite comp that as long as they can just use their rage to siege, like, what does Schalke do? You know, like, how do you play against this comp? Because, like, The first Rift I think was super important, which Rogue sacrificed that first Drake for. They didn't even lose the first Drake, they still ended up getting it. And while Schalke tried to funnel gold into BrokenBlade, that was fine. But now you can see how impossible it is for BrokenBlade to actually play this game.
That's the thing, Schalke enacted their game plan well. Their game plan was get BrokenBlade really fed. BrokenBlade is 3k gold ahead of Odoamne. The issue is, Odoamne needed one item this game to do anything useful, and he's already bought it. It's one of the cheapest mythic items in the game. BrokenBlade trying to put pressure on in the side lane, but we've already seen, if Odoamne pops a Mantrid W, a Mantrid Focus Resolve, he can heal up through most of the damage that BrokenBlade can put down.
Yeah. So while it's exciting to see this Irelia, you're starting to see some of the struggles that she does have as a champion. She needs not just the only utility that she has, but from the rest of her team to really dive onto the backline and act as a backline threat. Now, Limit is set up in this brush. There is no vision, but Rogue grouped as a team. BrokenBlade and Limit looking for a pick. Rogue right now not falling into the trap.
And Neon is spotted on a ward. Control ward just where he walks across. He didn't clear it out. Farsight Alteration will spot Abbedagge as he pushes forward. Two members of Schalke unseen in the darkness. BrokenBlade trying to come in. Gilius is starting up the Ocean Drake to try and pull Rogue out of position. Now they've spotted the bot lane as the Swirl Seed connects. Losing Lullaby going down as well, and that's a very sleepy cow. BrokenBlade still looking for the flank. Pops the forward Sjokz, doesn't get the stun. Gilius, the reset on the Drake. Inspire goes in. Gilius secures it. Limit tries to jump onto Inspire, but immediately the stopwatch is there. Abbedagge dived in here as Larssen tries to put the damage down. Limit already down to half HP. And here comes Trymbi. And here come the rest of Rogue. Gilius, you can have every Drake you damn well like. The quadra kill for Larssen and Hansama, you scumbag, as you steal away the Penta.
That should have been a Penta kill for Larssen. He saw it, we saw it, everyone saw it, but Hansama said, no, it's only game one. And a beautifully executed fight from Rogue. BrokenBlade didn't land his ultimate. No CC came out from Schalke. There was no threat at all onto the backline. And Larssen and Hansama could just dominate the fight. Just clinical execution, clean game from start to finish. Rogue looking dominant in game one. Surprisingly fast game as well, man. 26 minutes. When we were watching Rogue at the beginning of the season, remember they were averaging insanely fast game times, and it feels like that they've just gone back to their bread and butter, back to what they know. Strong laners that they know how to play around the plates, prioritize the early Herald. The swap to top Herald is something that Rogue has literally done all split. Yep. The 8-minute swap is just so classic Rogue that when you speak to other teams, they're like, yeah, at 8 minutes, you know they're going to swap to top lane. And even though you know it's coming, they still are able to execute upon it flawlessly. Schalke, they tried to snowball BrokenBlade, but it was not enough. He had zero impact in any of these fights, and I can't really blame him. You can see how difficult it was to get into the backline. How do you ever get into the fight, right? Yeah, it was so really great comp from Rogue, very well executed. Karma top lane, clearly the play.
Exactly. Yeah, 100%. Should have just put it top lane yesterday. I did have a quick Google. As far as I can tell, Larssen doesn't have any competitive pentakills, whereas Hansama has one. So Hansama was just trying to stop Larssen matching him. That's it for game one, though. And after the break, we'll be joined by Kaiser for a closer look at that bot lane matchup.
They are out there, waiting to be discovered. Some of them are big, and some of them are small. But that's the thing with ideas. They don't just come to you. To find them, you have to move. Kia, movement that inspires.
You don't have a chance against me. I can calculate 90 trillion moves in advance. Not fair. Not fair.
Red Bull gives you wings. Welcome back, everyone, to the Analyst Desk in Game Rogue. Yeah, I mean, that's actually factually correct. In Game 1, rather, Rogue absolutely smashed Schalke 04, showing us a return to form possibly in this best of 5, a very convincing win. And since we have Kaiser here, we are going to talk in depth about the bot lane specifically. Let's start by the draft. And we said before the series, Kaiser, that we were going to see possibly a very big focus on the bot lane also in the draft. So what did you make of the matchup we ended up seeing here?
So, I mean, I would say that Schalke got kind of everything what they wanted. I think they got the Alistar, which Limit was performing really well on. What kind of surprised me is that they chose the Xayah over the Kaiser. I think Neon has been a really insane Kaiser player, and it really fits their playstyle of like just going in as 5 all the time really well. So it was kind of surprising to me that they chose the Xayah over it. It's a better matchup into Tristana, but I think Tristana is kind of a mid-pick right now, so I would have preferred the Kaiser for sure. And I think the lane matchup into Ashe is also worse because Xayah doesn't really have that much range. She can't really get onto the Ashe. And especially in this matchup of Rell versus Alistar, whoever, like they can both kind of block their engage because Rell E stops the Alistar combo, Alistar Q stops Rell W. So whoever has the more range in the AD carry matchup just wins this lane by default because the enemy can never trade or never engage. So yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. So we were talking earlier about the Alistar and what were the counters, but specifically this combination of the Rell with a long-range AD carry like the Ashe is something that can be very, very oppressive. Let's look at what happens in this lane because, as said from the beginning, the attention of the teams is going towards that lane.
Yeah, and I was actually surprised to see how much time was spent by both teams going towards the bottom lane. You saw Gilius pathing down very early. You see Inspired matching that early pressure. And this is one of the few instances where Neon and Limit are trying really hard to get a wave back under tower to try to get these first backs. And Trymbi goes for a very big confidence engage. And the thing is, this is very good for Schalke. Now, you can see on your screen here, they don't burn any summoner spells in this trade. And it really feels like on the back of this play, Schalke are completely set up to find the next all-in, maybe with support from Gilius. But this is where things go wrong. Limit, rare that we see him be too aggressive. We praised him for his aggressiveness for weeks now, but in a single instance kind of throws away what was a very advantageous state on an opportunity that it turns out really wasn't there.
And what happens here, because he clearly thinks as the Alistar that he has enough to go in for the combo and then to be finished off by the Xayah, why does it not work out? What did he didn't take into account?
I mean, so I think he thought that Hansama based, so like Hansama was basing in vision, so maybe Rell is alone, maybe he can go for a kill because he doesn't have flash, but I think it's just maybe a bit too much, I guess, because Inspired was bot lane, they didn't see him. So that's why he maybe the play was not gonna work out anyway. But this play really snowballed the game for Rogue because what happened is like Ashe swapped to Herald. That's what they were gonna do anyway because they have prio. But Xayah had to stay on the tower for like a longer time because the Alistar died. They could push another wave. If Hansama just reset, they wouldn't have been able to push out the wave. And then like maybe Xayah could actually swap to Herald first. But due to this death, they just swapped earlier. Xayah couldn't follow because she was late. And then Irelia is in a 1v2 matchup, which is not really optimal for her. Karma is more comfortable with that because she relies less on gold, she relies less on XP to function. So yeah, Rogue just hard won off that play. For sure.
And then you saw also, as you say, that the Irelia was supposed to be the saving grace for the side of Schalke, right? They tried to invest a lot into BrokenBlade, getting a couple of kills, then bot lane, Daniel, but there was not enough to help the Irelia out, or actually half the team wanted to do something different than she wanted to do, which is go in.
Yeah, when we were looking at the draft, both the Azir and the Xayah generally want people to fight into them. You set up the Sand Soldiers, you set up the Feathers, you always want the enemy team to be coming into you. The Irelia, on the other hand, always wants to go in. And now there's an Udyr there, there's an Alistar there to back her up. And even with this build, with the Immortal Shield Bow and the Blade of the Rune King, I think it can be very strong, but who does she auto-attack? That's the #1 question. Karma speeds up allies, walks away. Lillia very fast walks away. Yes, if she lands a clutch ultimate, there's always this kind of dream scenario in your mind. But even when Limit landed a few engages, there's just not enough time. Tristana knocks you back, forces the fight to reset, and you don't really have any options to start free hitting. So a champion that has kind of pseudo-tankiness to survive so much instantly becomes incredibly squishy because she just can't auto-attack to get value out of that lifesteal. It was a pick that I think Schalke wanted more out of, that they invested more into. You saw Hansama got a 2,200 gold lead. Well, on the opposite side of the map, Schalke did get a 1,700 gold lead for BrokenBlade. So maybe in Schalke's mind, they felt like they could trade even, that they could match things out. But the reality is the Karma gave so much value, and ultimately the Irelia, sadly for BrokenBlade, just didn't do anything in these final fights.
And what it looked like to me also is that Rogue just played that game expertly. They knew exactly where they got their leads. They knew exactly when to swap and which objectives to go for, and they really choked Schalke out. That's more of the Rogue that we were used to seeing from the regular season.
I mean, that's for sure true. I think they played just to their win conditions. I think Schalke, of course, like into the bit. I think they could have been like less far behind. I think then maybe Irelia still looks strong because she can like basically 1v2 in the side lane. She can like take a lot of towers, take a lot of like objectives as well if she groups for the fight. But I think due to the fact that they got Herald, that Tristana got so far ahead that he could just one-shot the Irelia over and over again, it just made it hard for BrokenBlade to play the game.
That it did. When we look now towards the second game, Schalke is going to the blue side for game 2. If we look at the post-game breakdown, we did have the carries on Rogue stepping up. Larssen on that Tristana as well. Could have gotten the pentakill, but Hansama took it away. Hansama, everybody doing their job. So it's back to the drawing board. What are you expecting out of this blue side for Schalke in game 2?
So I think the draft was actually like fine enough. I think what they should change is maybe the AD carry pick. I think Xayah is for sure a good pick, a counter pick into Kaiser, for example. But I think I like Schalke way more on these aggressive, more aggressive AD carries like the Kaiser, maybe even like, yeah, I mean maybe even Alistar or something like this, because they're more lane dominant. They are like better in team fights as well because Xayah in this game, he cannot hit anyone. They Rogue drafted really well because they have no frontline for Xayah to hit freely, and yeah, that's just made the game hard for Neon to play.
And I think generally the Tristana flex has already proven to be very high value. You already speculated that that's why the Xayah came in instead of the Kaiser. And you're in a situation where as long as Ashe is a champion that people are willing to play, the Kalista drops a little bit in value. Very strong lane matchup overall. And I think bot lane priority seems to be the key for success. You heard Vedi talk about it on the caster desk, the 8-minute swap for Herald. Rogue do it every time. Rogue can do it every time when they have that bot lane prio. So finding ways to take that away from them, whatever it takes, if it's creative flex picks, if it's denying some of these options for Rogue, I think that is the key for Schalke to come into game 2 on a more even playing field.
Yeah, and as the nature is of best of fives, Rogue already, they showed now this game plan. They said, oh, we don't even need to take the Hecarim necessarily. We've got something else we can do. And that, of course, is what makes these best of fives and the draft philosophies so interesting. Rogue are on their way towards a spot in the semifinal, but we'll see if Schalke can bounce back in game 2.